see what happens here. Maybe we can catch a bear crossing behind me or something right here, maybe. Might see a bear. Guaranteed there should be some eagles coming in and out behind me for sure. Maybe even a jumping salmon, you never know. Hopefully the river sound isn't too annoying, alright? I'm going to stay and do another handful of shares here before I go. Take advantage of this cool weather. It's supposed to get hotter than hell in a few days again. You've got questions, I've got answers. Alright, sounds good to me. Hey Steve, I go by Cam. Let me just start from the beginning. I was born and raised in Colorado. I was 10 years old when I started going elk hunting with my father and grandfather. Growing up and hunting with these two men, I got to hear a lot of stories about their experiences with something in the woods. Aside from all the standard stuff like tree knocking and sounds that didn't sound right like our standard animals here, there's one story that sticks out. Out of respect for my father and grandfather and these beings, I will not provide the exact areas of these encounters. This happened the year before I started going during third rifle season on cold and crisp October morning. My dad and grandfather had been hunting a big patch of quakies and meadows without any luck on the morning hunt. They had stayed out a little longer than anticipated and got caught in a small snowstorm which dumped about 2 to 3 inches of fresh powder. They took separate finger ridges on the way out, and my grandfather jumped a cow from her bed in the black timber. He made a shot that was a little far back. My father heard him shoot and crossed the meadow onto the ridge where my grandfather was. They decided to give this cow a little bit of time as there was not so much blood. So after about an hour and a half, they started tracking. The cow had ran back up the ridge on the opposite side into a draw about a mile from where she was when she got shot. My dad and grandfather went to where she had laid down and took her last breaths in peace. But there was no cow in the imprint in the snow. Instead, they found that something big had come down the ridge on the other side and looked like it had picked this elk up and carried it back up the ridge. The snow and dirt were all mixed together as if something had slid down this hill, and they started to follow it. About 100 yards into tracking, they stopped dead in their They stopped dead in their tracks when they saw a large barefoot print. But my dad said it looked to be about 20 inches in length. They turned around and decided not to retrieve that elk. She had been claimed by something bigger and badder than them. Anyway, Steve, I'll start with this one. But I have a lot more, sir, and they get a lot better. Oh, I think you meant to say I'll stop with this one. I'm now a grown man of 36 years of age. I served 8 years in the United States Army as an infantryman and sniper. I still hunt elk to this very day, and I've hunted them in a few states, including Montana, Idaho, Colorado, New Mexico. I have a few encounters that I had during my time of service, as well lots more while chasing elk in the woods. Please let me know if you would like to hear them. Cam? Yeah, man, I want to hear them. I want to hear it all. Everybody does. Everybody wants to hear each other's experiences. They want to hear it straight from your mouth, honest to God, exact whatever it is you remember, what you experienced, and share it through me to everybody else, all right? I want to hear it all. What I'm not interested in, I'm not really that interested in the stick structures and taking pictures of them and all that other stuff, all right? Sure, it might be interesting to a handful of people, but it doesn't, let's face it, how does that help anyone? How does that help anyone who's traumatized from what they saw and what they experienced, all right? I'm not being a dick either, I'm talking plain honesty with a good, honest question, is if we do spend a lot of time describing, seeking out and finding tree structures and taking photos of footprints, and explaining how we found the footprints and what the stride was and where they went and this and that. Well, I shouldn't go on for the footprints. That is something significant if you're, walking in the snow and you see these things. It's something else to see, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, send everything you got, man. Just send it, all right? And get straight to the meat of the details. Anything that will possibly assist you getting it off your chest. I know that you've accepted these beings as real, but more importantly, anything you feel that can help the people, all right? You want what will help the people. Absolutely appreciate it and appreciate your time it'll take to do it. Okay, man? Everybody, as soon as I get that man cave built, there's going to be a lot more talking and less reading going on from everybody out there. So I got to kind of get back and get into it, get home and get into my work. Terrified to go in the woods now. Who isn't? Really. It's just what you do with a terror. It's how you manage it inside, right? Hello, Steve. I actually came across your channel after doing a search on YouTube for how to hunt videos. Now I'm a 43-year-old professional woman, geriatric MD that loves animals and the outdoors. My desire to now hunt is honestly really not to hunt, but to learn how to carry a weapon and protect myself. This is due to some experiences that now has prevented me from enjoying the outdoors. I desperately want to go camping or do my favorite activity, trail riding with my horse. Before I found your channel, I was so scared and embarrassed on telling anyone the real reason I wanted to carry a gun. Well, here's my experience that ultimately led me to this point. My first experience happened one summer when I was 13 years old. I was living in St. Louis, Missouri. Been there. But the experience happened in some rural part of central Illinois. A good girlfriend of mine moved to Illinois that summer and invited me to bring my pony, a gray Welsh mountain pony, on over and explore the 100 or so acres her family purchased. We were both so excited and couldn't wait to jump on our horses and go exploring. Actually, we couldn't wait that much that we forgot our saddles and just bridled the horses and jumped on bareback and off we went. It was hot, humid, bugs everywhere, but none of that mattered as we galloped, racing through the fields towards a very dark, thick tree-lined forest. We rode along the edge, looking for an entrance. We found a tight spot that looked like a trail. Maybe it was a game trail. But just as I nudged my pony into the dark forest, his whole attitude changed. His ears were no longer nicely turned back, just listening to my commands. His body was now tight, stiff, and jumpy. His ears were forward and held high. I was ahead of my friend, and we both had trouble getting our horses to move forward. I actually don't get nervous too often, but I must admit the feeling I was having was beyond nervous. I actually felt scared. No, scratch that, terrified. I worked my way through the tall trees that tightly lined this trail. I recall wearing shorts and being scratched up all over my legs. The deeper we went, the more terrified I remember feeling. But I also remember trying to tell myself, it's all in my mind, because why in the hell would I need to be terrified? It's just the woods, I thought. Well, I found out pretty quickly why I felt those instinctual feelings. Then it happened, a horrible smell. I think my horse picked it up first. Then, I will never forget glancing around to my right to see if a bear was around, and then suddenly Tinker, my pony, came to a sudden violent stop. I can remember clear as day what I saw ahead of us about 40 feet on the trail. It was standing there, huge, black hair all over. I actually thought at first, holy shit, it's a bear. I felt frozen, and my poor pony, I think, was frozen too. But then what seemed like hours looking at this thing, it was really seconds, it immediately occurred to me it was standing on 2 feet. And just before Tinker reared up and turned, I normally would never let him rear up at this, but at this moment I was happy. Even bareback I stayed on, nothing was getting me off his back. This thing took off so fast on 2 feet, I honestly think it vanished after running. Oh, another thing I forgot to mention, I couldn't hear anything. No birds, insects, or those normal forest sounds. It's almost like I entered into another world. My thighs hurt for days though. LOL. Anyways, off we went, pretty much galloping all the way back. My friend I found out had turned around way back and was waiting for me in the field. She said her horse wouldn't move ahead anymore. I remember both of us galloping our horses as fast as we could to get back to the house. I couldn't wait to trail her up and get out of there. I felt badly for leaving my friend who now had to live on the same property. I kept in touch with her for a couple of years after, and we never talked about that day, and I never said anything to her about what I saw. She did tell me she didn't ride anymore, so I wonder if she had her own experience eventually. Well, I kept riding over the years, but I refused to go trail riding. I was secretly scared to death. Okay, I felt like this is way too long, and you may not want to read my second story, so it's okay if you don't. I'll make it quick, though, I promise. Let's have at it. This one happened in Canada. I think it was either 2000 or 01. I was running an 8-man relay race from Jasper to Banff. I ran the second leg 8 miles and the 10th leg of 10 miles, something like that. Well, my second leg, it was like 12 a.m. and pitch black, and the teams have spread out so no one was around me as I was running. My coach just took off a couple miles ahead. He said to motivate me to run fast, LOL. I was running alongside a huge lake to my right. Was the lake... Okay, I was running alongside a huge lake. To my right was the lake. To my left, a steep hill of those dark, tall trees. The same feeling came over me again. The same silence, that same smell. I was a pretty fast runner, running a scholarship in college, but I think I held a world record that night. There it was, about 40 feet ahead of me. 40 feet. Coming from the lakeside, it bounded huge strides, like 2 or 3 across the road. It stopped for a second when it got across and looked at me. Then on and up that hill, it ran. It vanished into the blackness. When I finished, my coach informed me that I was the last runner allowed to run that leg. He said it was because a grizzly bear sighting. Oh, hell no. I never told him or anyone about what I saw, but I wondered if they truly shut that leg because of a grizzly. Well, I know what I saw. Grizzlies don't run in 2 legs, right? And they don't have long flowing hair. Okay, thank you so much, Steve, for allowing me to get this off my chest. I'm starting to feel like I'm not carrying this secret around anymore. I just have to work on getting out there, enjoying the forest again. I see all the beautiful remote places you go to and so badly want to be there too. Well, with you, this channel, and the people sharing and encouraging, I believe it'll be sooner than later. Sincerely, Dr. M, Scottsdale, Arizona. And okay, I got your short message, the PS after that. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Wow. Yeah, I absolutely appreciate that share. And I just can't imagine that people would actually do that. Organize a run, 24-hour run, I'm guessing, through the night from Jasper to Banff. Are you kidding me? National parks, the grizzly bears are still the A predator. You know, not to mention there is a shit pile of Sasquatch sightings around Banff, Jasper. Always has been, ours will be. They're there. But I just can't imagine somebody running down that highway in the middle of the night, them encouraging it, where there are a pistol-headed grizzly bears that do not have any respect for us. The grizzly bears, predators, on average, do not respect us where they are not hunted or killed by us. It's just the way it is. Glad nobody got hurt, and for them to shut it down because of a grizzly sighting, that's so bizarre, because grizzlies cross the highway, they cross the roads, they go around golf courses 24/7. It's kind of funny. It's like in Whistler, British Columbia, where I lived for many years, Western Pemberton. Every once in a while, there will be a message out to the public that X so-and-so trail is closed because of a cougar sighting. Cougar in the area. When meanwhile, all those people who react that way actually don't even realize that the cougars are there all the time. It's just one finally slipped up and let somebody see it. But the wildlife is there 24/7. They're just too intelligent not to let us. They're too intelligent on average to allow us to see them in broad daylight. So I always laugh when they close something down because of an animal sighting. It's like, oh boy, you guys are that silly, huh? So what? So when you take down the sign, your general public's supposed to let down their guard because there's no animals there anymore? Oh, that's kind of funny. Anyway, let's get another one shared. And I gotta get to work. As usual, right? Thanks again for making that share, and I'm happy to hear that it helps you out, getting it off your chest, like so many other people here, right? You're not alone, you're not crazy, and the amount of people who are sharing is substantial, and there's no reason to hide it anymore. There's just not. Don't be scared of anybody or anything, or ridicule especially from human beings, right? Don't be afraid. This is titled, Really? With a question mark. Hi Steve, I'll keep it short. This happened in 2008. I was staying with my sister at the time, having recently separated, and had my youngest and only son with me for the day. I was teaching him how to shoot using a Crossman .177 caliber pellet pistol. I felt it was important to know gun safety and how to shoot, since he no longer lived with me and he enjoyed it. It seemed to improve his confidence as well. We fired about 30 rounds between us when he made a face and said, "Dad, did you let one?" I said I had not, and my nose was assaulted by the single worst smell I'd ever encountered. I've smelled goats, bear, big cats at poorly ran zoos, etc. But wow, imagine 3-day-old roadkill mixed with a landfill in late July right after the rain stops. Besides being so nasty, it was strong. So strong, in fact, that I checked my shoes and looked around to see if I had disturbed a gallon of rotting flesh laying around. No such luck. Don't get me wrong, I didn't see a damn thing, but the hair on the back of my neck and my arms was standing up high enough to comb. This surprised me because my disposition was more of curiosity at first, but every whiff of that smell was having an effect. I quickly scanned roughly 180 degrees of visibility I had, facing the woods, saw nothing, and had an overwhelming urge to get my boy in the house. Steve, I left my pistol, pellets, CO2 cartridges, targets and all, right where they were, and grabbed this 8-year-old hand and said something about snack time and started dragging his ass to the house. I can't say what it was other than unique in my 63 years of outdoor life. I grew up in Illinois, but I'm an Air Force veteran. I've been coast to coast several times, 3 times by motorcycle, which puts you much more in touch with your environment as well your butt than a rolling living room on 4 wheels. I've never had anything like that experience. What stands out is how strong the stench was. There was no wind to speak of, and it was like I was standing on this smell. Her property backs up to the North Georgia woods and the Pine Log Wildlife Management Area, WMA, which is massive by eastern U.S. standards. I wouldn't have thought about a Bigfoot-type creature until you read a few emails about cloaking. When I scanned left to right, I was looking for a place where something big could hide. It came up empty, but it was peculated or cloaked. It must have been pixelated. Pixelated or cloaked? Anyway, that in the nearby primordial way, my hair stood up, burned the memory into my mind, and it remains strong to this day. For what it's worth, share if the mood hits you, and keep up the good work. Thousands of sightings, video pictures, casts. There's a hell of a lot of smoke to not have some fire somewhere. Larry Farmer. Thank you so much for that email, man. Thanks for the share. You know what it was. You already know what it was, right? If you didn't know what it was, you wouldn't have emailed it to me, right? No bears, no eagles, and no carcasses. And it's kind of funny. Every single teeny, itsy, bitsy piece of salmon carcass that was laid up on all these rocks and in the bottom of that pool behind me are gone. Like cleaned up. It's bizarre. Anyway, let's get on with our share, all right? "100% City Boy" is the title of this email. All right. Hey, Steve. For starters, I'd like to send my condolences to your buddy Mac. I'm sure he is looking down at you right now. Thanks, man. My name is Damian Weekly. I was born and raised on the west side of Chicago. I'm 39 years old, military veteran and an ex-street guy. You know what I mean, gang, drugs, etc. I'm not proud of it, nor am I bragging about the dumb shit many of us have done as children. I'm just one of the few that made it out without injury or extensive-ass criminal record. But that's neither here nor there. I'm one of the millions of people that tune into your channel and enjoy every bit of it. I'm emailing you to tell you about 2 experiences I had in my life. At the time, I'd relocated from Texas to Michigan after a job promotion. I moved my family in a house in Romulus, Michigan, where my ex-wife now lives. But that's a whole nother effing story. Well, anyway, behind my house there was a huge forest-like area where you could barely see through the trees during the day. So just imagine what it's like at night. Whenever I do yard work or just hang out on my patio for a smoke, I would always have the feeling of being watched. I never really gave it any thought. Plus, I've always loved serenity, scenic views, and the wilderness, even though I've never been hunting. Hence, the subject, the title, City Boy. At the time in my marriage, my wife worked nights and I worked days. So during the night, I was Mr. Mom to my 2 young children. I'll never forget this. Steve, keep in mind that I'm a pretty heavy sleeper. On this particular night, I had my bedroom window open to enjoy the nightly breeze while sleeping. My 2 rural rugrats decided to sleep in bed with me that night, so all was quiet and calm. The only thing I remember is being awakened by the loudest and worst scream I've ever heard in my life. It was coming directly from the woods just beyond the gate of my backyard. Steve, it sounded like a really big woman being killed. It went on for almost 10 minutes, and none of my neighbors turned their lights on or anything. I got up and turned my back porch light on to see if I could see anything moving in the woods. I even went outside and saw nothing. Shortly after that, the sound just stopped. Until this day, I have no idea what the hell that was. The next few days, I Googled screams and strange noises that people have heard in the Michigan wooded areas and came across the Michigan Dogman. And lo and behold, Steve, it was the exact same vocalization I heard that night. At that point in my life, the only beings I knew to be in the woods were the Sabe, but that night opened my eyes to even more. My second experience was in the same house, involving the same woods behind it. One day my kids and I were in the kitchen, and I happened to look out my window and noticed at least 10 deer running out of the woods like something was chasing them. And they all stopped by my back gate. Steve, I swear to you, I've never seen anything like that in my life. I'm used to deer always running away from humans. They were literally almost leaned up against my gate. I told my wife it was as if something was chasing them and scared them out of the woods. Steve, since you're an outdoors expert, do you know what would cause the deer to behave like that? Well, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Steve, thanks for all you do, and keep up the awesome work. Feel free to use my name, and much like you, I have the same attitude. I don't give an F. Come and see me. As we say in Chicago, stay safe but dangerous. Thanks, Steve. Damien. Damien, I'll bet you could probably have some crazy ass childhood stories. Just like we all do, right? We all grew up doing stupid shit. And you know, for all of you who might feel a little embarrassed or humiliated about some of the stupid things you did growing up, trust me, I could probably write the Encyclopedia Britannica on stupid things to do in life. But the outcome is what counts, right? It's how we manage to survive and learn and get better, right? But anyways, on the note of what do I know about that relates to that, why the deer would do that. Handful of years, place called Owl Ridge Estates, above the Birkenhead River. There was a friend of mine's neighbor had a mountain goat, a frickin' mountain goat, burst out onto their front lawn out of the back 40 and stayed on their lawn for nearly 3/4 of the day, and it was panting for the first hour it came out of the forest. And they said there was something large and dark in the timber, but it wouldn't come out after the goat. And that is basically ground zero for some of the most common Sasquatch activity experiences that I know of here in BC. So many, it's ridiculous. Meanwhile, mountain goat cliffs, the mountain goat mountains, wait, that thing would have had to come down the cliffs for frickin' ever, where the couple of goats usually hang out. Then it had to come down through steep timber for probably about, I don't know, 1,000 yards. And then it would have had to travel across a grown-up, previously logged-off area, another 500 or 600 yards. And then it would have had to go on another 150 yards through other timber to make it to that backyard. Wow, right? Another time I was steelhead fishing with a couple of friends. We were drift fishing down a remote river on Vancouver Island years ago. And I'd beached my drift boat, and we got out on a sandbar. We're standing there fishing for steelhead, and all of a sudden a deer burst out of the timber, went across the water onto our gravel sandbar on the river, and stood there looking back into the timber, panting like a frickin' dog, like it had just ran for his life. And my buddies were like, "Oh wow, look at that deer." Meanwhile, me, I was like, "Oh shit, what's coming next?" Right? But nothing came out. The deer just stood there with us for about, I don't know, it probably hung out there for at least half an hour, and then it walked downriver and slowly walked into the timber, walked away. So those are the only two direct experiences I can relate to what you just shared with us, myself. You probably got a feeling what did it, right? I mean, wildlife usually goes to where they're not hunted and where predators won't follow for safety, right? That's why you get a lot of deer in cities now, especially in Vancouver Island. There's no packs of wolves running around in the cities. Now there's piles of deer because it's safe. Oklahoma 2012. I'll tell you what, Oklahoma has got to be the state with the most craziest shit going on the planet. The most, I should say. Who knows what we're about to get shared with us. Dear Steve, thanks for the excellent work you're doing helping the people's stories be told. I've been a fan of both your channels and love hearing other people's stories and all your hunting adventures. Thank you for the kind words, and you are very welcome. It's easy, man. Now to the story. It was rifle deer season in Oklahoma, specifically the Stillwater Creek area west of Highway 86. I don't want to get more specific than that because it wasn't my land. My buddy from high school had about a half a section, 320 acres, kitty-cornered each other. We always hunted a hill between these two patches of trees that led down to a few wheat fields. Well, one day my buddy and I were out sitting on the hill and we saw a few does, nothing very exciting. It was getting dark, so we both headed back to my truck. We made our way to the first field where about 6 does were still eating. We crouched down and watched them until they wandered off across the creek. We could still hear and see them, but they didn't seem to see us, so we continued our walk. When we got next to an old oil field area from one of the many oil booms, we heard something that neither of us could explain. It was almost completely dark. We could still see the does across the creek. And we both stopped dead in our tracks, stopped by one of the nastiest smells I've smelled. It smelled like a combo of rotten flesh and skunk. We stopped right when I said, "Hey, do you smell that?" From the tree line or behind the tank batteries came a whoop sound, and it was low to high pitched at the end. Both of us looked very confused. Then we saw the deer's reaction, and that's what alarmed me. The deer who had earlier been eating with no care in the world, then, as soon as they heard that sound, they lost their shit. They ran everywhere, snorting, making all kinds of noise. We briskly continued our walk back to the truck. We got there, we both sat and discussed just what the hell that smell and noise was. Thanks to this channel, I now know what we experienced. My friend then later told me stories of how his brother's fearless little dog would fight or chase any wild animals. But in this area, the dog would sometimes act terrified for no reason. This experience didn't stop us from hunting there, but it always made us on our toes. We never touched our guns through this whole event. Maybe that's why it was so tame. I had my 30-06, my buddy had a 308. Thank goodness we didn't try to use them. Thanks for all you do. My name is Nathan Nelson. I no longer live in Oklahoma, so sharing my name will be fine. I now live in the beautiful San Juan Mountains and collect 10 cords of wood a year for each winter. Thankfully, no sightings during those adventures. My wife and her mom, when she was a kid, lived out in the Death Valley area. They were driving back at night on one of those truly deserted stretches of roads where my wife says she saw a really tall, skinny, hairy man walk across the road in 3 steps, then off into the desert. A few miles later, their tire fell off because someone didn't tighten the lug nuts, and they almost crashed. They waited 4 hours for someone to even drive by to help them. Keep on pumping out the people's word. You have an army of support, good people willing to help you if you will let them. Godspeed with your endeavors. Sincerely, Nathan Nelson. Nathan, appreciate you and your kind words, and especially your time that you donated to everybody through me, man. Time is so valuable. Thank you so much. God, I'm having a tough time stopping reading today. I gotta get going. It's 1 in the afternoon. And I got a list of shit to do. Let's do one more. Especially because, you know, my weakness for Alaska, and it was titled Alaska Sighting, June 22nd, 2021, with a map. All right. Hi, Steve. So talking about how fast the Sabe, I hope I spelled it right, can run. I think my grandson and I may have seen a good example of their speed. I'll include a screenshot of the map app to help explain what we saw. We were a bit south of Girdwood, Alaska, driving towards Anchorage from the Kenai Peninsula on June 22nd, 2021 at about 3:30 in the afternoon. I'm actually very familiar with Anchorage. Every spring when the ground thaws, the road construction starts, and we were stuck at a construction site, sitting in a long line of cars waiting to go. I was looking at the mountains to our right. The snow was still there, going down to the tree line. Granted, it was not a deep snow, and there were patches of earth showing here and there. But for the most part, the top 2/3 of the mountain was in snow. I had a nice view of the mountain, as there was a large flat area in front of it going from the road to the mountain. Looking to my left towards turning an arm. Been there. There was a heavy fog coming towards us that covered the water, and even the lower part of the mountains that run along each side of the water. The fog was backed away, so I still had a clear view of the first couple mountains to my right. a helicopter came out of the fog and turned towards the mountain I've been studying. My 8-year-old grandson was sitting in the back seat, and I asked if he saw the helicopter, and he said he did. We watched it fly to our right towards the mountains. It was low and flew beneath and between the first 2 mountain peaks. It flew over the center of a valley between the mountains and out of sight. That is when I noticed a figure come out of a dark area up near the top of the nearest mountain. It was like a black line moving across and down the mountain. At that distance, we could not make out arms or legs. I don't know what the dark area it came out of is for sure, but that is what this figure came out of. It seemed the helicopter spooked it out. It was an upright thing, like a finger pointing up, whereas a bear or moose would be like a finger pointing to the side. This is an upright black figure going down the mountain. It was very little, like looking at a flea on a tabletop, but it was actually clearly visible. I asked my grandson if he saw it, and he said he did. We watched it move down the mountain at an angle away from us on the road. It disappeared for an instant in a small ravine, and then came back into view and continued at an angle down the mountain to the tree line. We didn't see it anymore after that. It went all the way down that mountain through the snow and dirt in about a minute. I considered taking a picture, but it would just shown a mountain with a little black stick thing on it. A video would have been about the same and shaky to boot. So in order to make up for my lack of photographer abilities and inclinations, I've taken a screenshot of Google Maps showing where we were and where the helicopter went and where it went. I think it is better than any picture I could have taken. Maybe now this will help people understand how fast the Sasquatch are, if that is what we saw. I don't know what else it could have been, but maybe someone knows and can correct me. I also found it really interesting how the helicopter flushed it out, even though it flew by at least several hundred feet away and just kept going up the valley. Thank you for sharing all these people's experiences. The grandkids and I listen to you daily. You help convince the grandkids that these things are real. I try to tell them before they thought grandma was just pulling her leg. After our recent sighting, I know one of them is certain now anyway. If you go to the peninsula and need a nice quiet place to stay, we have a camp you're welcome to. Thank you and take care. Marguerite Schwartz and my trusty co-pilot, Chance. Wow, thank you so much for that share. And, oh no, really, right there. I know where that is. I know where that is. Now listen, I know exactly where that is. I'm gonna share you guys an experience that I had. All right, I don't know, what is this, 5 years ago or something, 4 years ago? Flew up to Alaska, flew in Anchorage, got a rental car, my backpack, all my gear, set off into the Chugach Mountains, and they're actually above Turnagain Arm. I don't share this with anybody yet. So off I go, and I was gonna plant trail cameras all over the place. I wanted to try to get remote Alaska game on the trail cameras, but more importantly, I was trying to get massive, huge, dull sheep, rams in particular. And I did film a lot of rams myself on that trip, but I also found a tree. There's a lone tree in the middle of a huge willow slope. You know the willow slopes I'm talking about up there, they're like over your head, right? Well, let's put it this way, when I climbed back up there a year later, solo, I was literally surfing uphill, standing on top of bent over willow branches like a ladder. I barely even touched the ground for I don't know how far along. It's so thick. And I wanted to do that intentionally because I wanted to get to where some of these dull sheep were that nobody's seen and where nobody went. And I found this tree with an open area underneath it, and there was sheep hairs, fur, rubbed all over the place under this big spruce tree in the middle of the willow slope. And it was probably to get to there was half a day, and it's probably another 4 hours to make it up the height of land, and then I dropped over the top and down into the next valley over. It's where I went. Well, when I went back there a year later, I left 1, 2, 3, 4 trail cameras underneath that tree. They're all gone. Every single one of them was gone. And as well as the other one I left at the top of the head of land. Nobody for miles, nobody seen me. It's the middle of frickin' nowhere. And still to this day, it kind of bugs the shit out of me, but what do you do? That's all I know, that's all I can share about it. And coincidentally, it was very, very close to where you had that sighting on that mountain. Go figure. Okay, I'm out here. Got to go back to the shop, get my ass going and salvage some this afternoon now that I'm back from the coast and get some work done.